is Stories That Live, Series 2, Book 3.
Spirit of Jesus, give me your love. Spirit of Jesus, give me your love. Oh Lord, give me a life for all to see. Spirit of Jesus, give me your love.
A Changed Man. Many times when Jesus taught the people, he spoke to them at the seashore. To get away from the crowds and spend some time alone, Jesus and his disciples got into a boat. They were planning to cross the Sea of Galilee. Jesus was tired and was soon fast asleep. Suddenly, a terrible storm started to rage. Water began filling the boat as the waves beat against it. Quickly, the disciples came and woke Jesus. "Master, we're going to die," they cried. Jesus got up and spoke to the wind. "Stop blowing," he commanded, "and waves, be calm." Immediately the sea became still. His disciples were amazed. Even the winds and the waves obeyed him. "Where is your faith?" Jesus asked. What did he mean? Was he telling them that they could have stopped the storm? As the disciples and Jesus came to the shore, a fierce-looking man came running toward them. He wasn't wearing any clothes. He was full of evil spirits. They made him so strong that even when he was bound by chains, he would get away. All alone in the mountains, he lived in empty tombs. Jesus spoke to the man. He commanded the evil spirits to come out. There was a herd of pigs feeding on the hillside nearby. The evil spirits begged to go into the pigs. "Go," Jesus said. Suddenly, the man's mind became normal again. The evil spirits had left him, but look out, pigs! The evil spirits entered them. They ran down the shore right into the water and drowned. When the men who were herding the pigs saw what happened, they ran and told everyone. Soon people came from all over to see if it was true. Sure enough, they found the man who had once been naked sitting at the feet of Jesus. He was clean, wearing clothes, and his mind had returned to normal. Still, the people who lived in that community asked Jesus to go away. They were afraid of what he was going to do. But the man who had been set free wanted to follow him, just like the disciples did. He loved Jesus too. "No," said Jesus, "go home and show your friends what God has done for you." How happy he was to be free from Satan's power. Now he could once again enjoy his family and friends. Mary, Martha, and Lazarus. Do you have special friends with whom you like to spend time? Jesus had friends like that. Their names were Mary and Martha, and their brother Lazarus. They lived in the town of Bethany. Jesus would go there to rest and enjoy the good food Martha cooked. She always did her best when Jesus came over to their house. One day, Lazarus became very sick. As the days went by, it seemed as if he was not getting any better. There weren't many doctors in those days, and they didn't have a lot of medicine to give sick people. Mary and Martha knew that Lazarus needed help. They would send for Jesus. Jesus had healed many people and had done great miracles. They believed that he could make Lazarus well again. Mary and Martha sent a messenger to go and get Jesus. There were no telephones or cars in those days, so all that Mary and Martha could do was wait. When Jesus got the message, he knew what he was going to do. He was not in any hurry. After 2 days had passed, he said, "Let's go to see Mary, Martha, and Lazarus." But Lazarus had already died. Why hadn't Jesus come? Mary and Martha wondered. Many friends came by to be with Mary and Martha. They wanted to comfort them and show their sorrow. Mary and Martha and their friends cried and cried. They put Lazarus' dead body into a grave. They had loved him so much, and now he was gone. After 4 days, someone came running with a message that Jesus was coming. Martha ran to meet him. "Jesus," she said, "if you had been here, my brother would not have died. But even now I know that anything you ask God, he will do." Jesus said, "Martha, your brother will rise again." Martha went to Mary and said, "The Master is here and is asking for you." When Mary came to Jesus, she dropped at his feet. With tears in her eyes, she said, "Jesus, if you had been here, my brother would not have died." "Mary, where have you buried him?" Jesus asked. As they went to the grave, Jesus wept. "Roll back the stone from the grave," Jesus said. Martha interrupted him. "Lord, he has been dead 4 days, and by now his body will smell bad." "Martha," said Jesus, "didn't I tell you if you would believe, you would see the glory of God?" They rolled the huge stone away from the grave. Then Jesus prayed and cried with a loud voice, "Lazarus, come out!" People were shocked, and Mary and Martha were full of joy. The man who had been dead 4 days came walking out of the grave. Lazarus was alive. What a wonderful family friend Jesus was to Mary, Martha, and Lazarus. Peter at breakfast. Peter loved to go fishing. It was something that he had done since he was a little boy. In the last 3 years, he hadn't fished very much. He had been too busy following Jesus. Now something terrible had happened. Jesus had died. He had been nailed to a cross. Suddenly, the disciples of Jesus, who had been so brave, became very much afraid. Would the people who crucified Jesus come looking for them next? One day, as they were hiding in a locked room, Jesus came in. He spoke to them and then disappeared again. Was he alive, or were their minds playing tricks on them? It was hard to understand what was going on. They had been so close to Jesus for 3.5 years, but now they were confused. It was evening time now, and Peter didn't know what to do. Suddenly he announced, "I'm going fishing." James, John, and 4 of the other disciples said, "We want to go with you." Peter and his friends got into the boat and began rowing to the best fishing spots on the lake. They fished and rowed and rowed and fished, but nothing was happening. Peter, James, and John had fished together many times before. They were not going to give up. As the early morning sun began to rise, they started rowing to shore. A man on shore called out, "Did you catch anything?" "Nothing," they replied. "Drop your net on the right side," he said, "and you will catch fish." Suddenly it felt like their net was stuck. It was so heavy as it came to the top of the water that they were amazed. It was full of 153 flopping fish. John looked at Peter. "It's Jesus," he said. Well, Peter couldn't wait to get to land. He jumped out of the boat into the water and headed toward the shore. There, standing by a small fire, was Jesus. He was making breakfast for them. How good the fish and bread tasted after a long night on the lake. After breakfast, Jesus looked at Peter. "Do you love me?" he asked. "Yes, I love you," Peter replied. "Then feed my lambs," said Jesus. Once more Jesus said, "Peter, do you love me?" "You know I do," said Peter. "Feed my sheep," Jesus said. When Jesus asked Peter the same question for the 3rd time, "Do you love me?" Peter was hurting on the inside. He had denied Jesus 3 times. Was that why he kept on asking, "Do you love me?" Peter looked at Jesus. "Lord, you know everything. You even know what's in my heart. Yes, Jesus, I do love you." Soon Jesus would be leaving them to go back to heaven. Jesus knew that Peter would be their new leader when he was gone. The sheep and the lambs were the big and little people that Jesus loved. He had come to give them life, but someone had to tell them about Jesus. That's what Jesus had meant when he said, "Feed my sheep," and "Feed my lambs." John, the disciple. John the disciple was an old man now. He knew that soon he was going to die, but he was not afraid. Jesus was his special friend, and dying simply meant that he was going to live with him. John still remembered the day when he had first met Jesus. He and his brother James had been working with their father Zebedee in their family business. They were all fishermen. Jesus had come by the lake, followed by a large crowd of people. There, while they were cleaning and fixing their nets, Jesus had started to teach the people. Soon, John and his brother stopped working. This man, Jesus, was no ordinary teacher. He didn't need a church in which to preach. He had used Peter's fishing boat. John would never forget all the fish that they had caught that day. The night before Jesus came by, they had been fishing all night. When morning came, they had returned tired and with not even one fish. But now, after hearing Jesus, even the tired feeling was gone. Jesus had said, "Let's go fishing." Everybody knew that Jesus was a carpenter. What did he know about fishing? That day, when there were supposed to be no fish around, they had caught a whole boat full of fish. They knew that it had been a miracle. Right there, John, James, and Peter were ready to obey Jesus and become his disciples. There was something about Jesus that was different. He had so much power in his words that even the stormy sea had become calm at Jesus' command. He thought back to that awful day when Jesus had died. But what a great day had followed when they heard that Jesus was alive. John and Peter had run to the grave to see where Jesus had been buried. John had been a faster runner than Peter, so he got there first. Sure enough, he found the tomb empty. Right then, John knew in his heart that Jesus was the Son of God and that he had risen from the dead. John could still hear Jesus' last words ringing in his ears. "Go ye into all the world and preach." That's exactly what John had done. Now he was all alone on a deserted island, left to die by the enemies of Jesus. He was alone, but not lonely. He could still talk to Jesus. Suddenly, while he was praying, Jesus stood right there. His hair was white, and his eyes were like fire. He had come with a message. John heard him say, "Write these words." Jesus began telling John about heaven and about what was going to happen in the years to come. There, on that island, John wrote the last book of the Bible. It is called the Book of Revelation. Many of the things that John wrote about almost 2,000 years ago are happening right now. Judas, the friend who betrayed. One of the 12 disciples chosen by Jesus was Judas Iscariot. He was the man who took care of all the money that people gave to Jesus. He kept it in a special bag. Just holding the bag made him feel good. When he would count it, he wished that it was his very own. He really loved money. Sometimes, when he needed to buy something for himself, he would take money out of the bag. Nobody will ever know, he thought. But God knew, and Judas knew. He was stealing. He was becoming a thief. When Judas started following Jesus, it was exciting. He never knew what Jesus was going to do next. All of the disciples agreed that Jesus would make a great king. You see, the Jewish nation, the great-great-great-grandchildren of Abraham, were ruled by another country. They were like slaves to the Romans. It seemed as if every priest and prophet had talked about a coming king who would set them free. Even the 12 special people, the disciples, were waiting for Jesus to set up a new government. Some of them began to argue who would get the best job. They all wanted to be important. Because Jesus was God living in a human body, he even knew what they were thinking. Judas had followed Jesus for 3 years, and Jesus was still not a king. Was it ever going to happen? Then one day, Jesus began talking about dying. No one likes to talk about that. One night, Jesus and some of his friends, including Judas, were having a special supper together with Mary, Martha, and Lazarus, the man who had been dead. After supper, Mary took some very expensive perfume and began pouring it on Jesus' feet. The whole room began to smell so good, but Judas was unhappy. Why didn't she sell that perfume and give the money to the poor? He fumed. Judas didn't really care about the poor. He was getting greedy and wanted all the money he could get. Satan heard what Judas was saying, and Satan also knew some people who wanted Jesus killed. He began putting bad ideas into Judas' mind. He put the same ideas into the minds of the priests and Pharisees. They agreed to hire Judas to take them to Jesus when he was alone, away from all the crowds. The priest agreed to give Judas 30 pieces of silver. Jesus was alone in the garden, praying, when an army of men approached him. They were led by Judas. The signal was that Judas would kiss Jesus. That way they would get the right man. Judas knew that he shouldn't do it, but now evil spirits were controlling him. Judas kissed Jesus. Quickly the soldiers took Jesus away. In just a few more hours, Jesus would be dead. Judas had betrayed his friend. When Judas heard that Jesus was condemned to die, he killed himself. He did not know that Jesus was going to rise from the dead. Mary Magdalene. It was very early Sunday morning. Even the sun still seemed to be sleeping. 3 women were walking toward a garden just outside the city of Jerusalem. Their names were Mary Magdalene, Johanna, and Mary. They were coming to see a friend for the last time. 3 days ago, Jesus, their best friend, had died. He had been nailed to a cross. It had all happened so fast. They really didn't understand why a good man like Jesus had to die. Mary Magdalene had met Jesus 3 years before. He had changed her life. You see, Mary Magdalene had allowed evil spirits, who are servants of Satan, to live inside her. When evil spirits control people, they make them do awful things. Jesus, who was stronger than any evil spirit, told all 7 of them to leave Mary Magdalene. She had become a new person. Every time that Jesus taught the crowds, Mary Magdalene would sit and listen. But now the great teacher, the man who did miracles, was gone. Mary Magdalene and her friends were coming to put some spices and perfume on Jesus' dead body. They knew exactly where Jesus was buried. There was a large stone covering the opening to the grave. When they got to the garden, Mary Magdalene saw that the stone had been moved. Somebody had taken the body away. She began to sob. One more time she looked at the empty tomb. To her surprise, she saw two angels dressed in white sitting where Jesus' body had been lying. The angels asked, "Why are you crying?" "Because someone has taken Jesus' body away and I don't know where it is," she answered. Mary Magdalene began to turn around. Somebody was standing behind her. It must be the caretaker of the garden, she thought. "Sir, if you have taken the body, tell me where you have put it, and I will go and take it away." The man said, "Mary." She recognized that voice. It was Jesus. Turning around, she cried, "Master!" Jesus said, "Do not touch me, because I have not yet gone up to see my Father. But go and tell my friends that I am alive." Mary Magdalene was so full of joy that she ran back to Jerusalem to find her friends. "I saw Jesus," she said. "He is not dead. He is alive." Nobody really understood what had happened, but it didn't matter. Mary Magdalene knew that her friend Jesus was alive.